Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar with Marina Gonzalez from Argentina on leadership qualities for academic management. Before we begin, my name is Andy Hockley. I'm the coordinator of LAMSIG, the Leadership and Management SIG of IATEFL. And just to do a little bit of advertising, we are involved in the International House Barcelona conference, which is on the 9th and 10th of February in Barcelona, and everyone is welcome. There's a discount for members. You can check our website for details of that. And also to mention our pre-conference event, which will be in Brighton just before the annual IATEFL conference in April. And we're doing it with Teacher Development SIG about finding a way of making very much bottom-up teacher development. So it's all teacher-driven teacher development, professional development programs. So it's a very interesting and exciting event. But that's enough advertising from me, and now I will hand you over to Marina, who will, I'm sure, give you an excellent talk. If you have any questions as it goes on, please note them in the chat room, the chat window below the slides, and I think that's it. Okay. Good luck, Marina, and enjoy, everybody.
Okay. So, hello everyone, and thanks Andy for the introduction and for the general comments. The idea today, as Andy explained, is to talk about leadership for academic management. And again, in terms of organization, I just love, as I talk, if you have any kind of comment or question that I can pick on and develop, that's perfectly fine by me, all right? So to get started, I would like you to know a little bit about where I'm going to stand for the presentation. And I'll try to, I can't see anything without my glasses, so I will try to stay still. These are the webinar stuff things, okay? So the point is this, for you to understand what I am going to say is I've been a manager for many years, and right now for the past 7-8 years I would define myself as a management teacher. All right, I am mostly involved in the teaching of management to EFL teachers, and that is mostly my interest, my concern, and the way I see the field. Okay. So the purpose of this is to add to the global understanding of leadership, but from the local point of view. Okay, I mean, I am Latin American, so I speak a lot, I make lots of gestures, and I live in a culture where certain things take place where that may not happen in some other places where things are a bit more strict. So please correct me or add the comments that may be different if culturally, okay? But this is the idea, to add to the development of management from the different cultures where we work, okay? So I hope that this leads to rich exchange, all right? To get started, I would like to refer to one of the basic concepts of the definitions of management, all right? And funny enough, we can see that the definitions of management generally date back to the 80s or 90s, okay? Nowadays we have a lot of production on leadership development, all right, on concepts, but none of them question the basic definitions of leadership. And this is crucial because for us, many of us became managers starting as teachers, and even if we come to management from managerial training, we deal with teachers and the way that teachers think tend to focus or be fixed on certain fundamentals, all right? That is, we need to find the core, what makes sense, and then we change or we adapt. But it is very difficult for teachers to change their sets of values or their sets of understanding. So one important step in these terms, if we are talking to our teachers, or we are going to apply the concept of leaderships to the ELT field, is this one, the fact that the core sustains, okay? It hasn't changed in the last 30 years. That's why I chose to start with this 1982 definition, okay? The idea of leadership being observable when one or more individuals succeed in attempting to frame and define the reality of others, all right? Of course, it may look a little bit like manipulative at the beginning, right? But that has to do whether we believe or we do not trust the values behind the interest of influencing other people, okay? And this is going to be the area where we are constantly, we will constantly go back and forth during this talk, all right? That is what lies behind the skills that are shown in general in terms of leadership, okay? What is there, and from the general field, what is applicable to our specific ELT field, okay? So the first image, I think that it's an interesting one, is one of my favorite pictures. I took it myself, but I think that one of the things that leadership tends to show us is a path in front of us, all right? And not the diversions, not the many different scenarios, which are a different thing. I mean, and it is interesting because probably a leader has all the possible scenarios in mind, but a leader is going to help people to do their best, and sometimes that may mean simplifying the vision ahead so that the person feels contained, all right, and comfortable enough to continue in their on their road, okay? Oh, wow. All right. This is interesting, Manoj, your question about being offended. That's why I want to take, and I hope that we manage to answer this throughout the talk, okay? Because leadership is a concept that comes from other fields that not necessarily the English language teaching or the educational field in itself. And that is where the art of leading comes into play, and the interpersonal and intrapersonal values. And this is the reason for the name of the talk, talking about qualities and not skills, all right? So bear with me a couple of minutes, and I hope that we will get closer to that, and then in the end we can see if we have answered this question, okay? But I will be bearing your doubt, because what you say that happens in your place is typical in my country and in Latin America in general. And we can say that teachers may be offended because when the task of a teacher, that is being alone in front of a group of students, is so demanding that the way in which you approach a teacher to help them beyond or to move beyond their immediate reality calls for a lot of skills and of interpersonal ability to prevent the teacher feeling intruded by the other person, okay? So that is why many times leadership should be felt like a push from behind and not pulling from the front. Okay. Mm? Yeah. All right. Yes. Give me time. Don't run it. And you will have time. Let me get to Goldman. All right. It's in the third slide. So, uh, what do we mean when we talk about leaders? Okay. I come from a country where psychology is very important and is present in every act that we do. Okay, and for that reason, and I think that is something that we all share, is that whatever the people that we work with are affected is not so much with specific or technical readings on leadership. Maybe many of us do, all right? Many of us may be acquainted with Goldman, and many of us may be in managerial positions without the slightest idea of what Goldman is doing. And that doesn't mean that we are better or worse at our jobs, all right? It is mostly and more probably related to the access that we have to publications or to other things. And we have managers, ELT managers in the whole world. So the interesting thing is to exchange, to share, but not to give recipes. And if we start from archetypes, and that is why I go so low, you might say, as to go to movies, all right, and to animated films, it's because those are things that we probably share, mostly, I'm sure, in the what is it? In the Western world, okay? But let me start with one of the archetypes by sharing this scene from A Bug's Life, okay? And we're going to discuss, I wanted to watch it, it's just 50 seconds, but the idea is that we try to depict the qualities that we can find in this leader, okay? So hope you enjoy it.
Oh no! I'm lost! Where's the line? It just went away. What do I do? Help! I'll be stuck here forever.
Do not panic! Do not panic! We are trained professionals! Now stay calm. We are going around the leaf.
Around the leaf? I don't think we can do that.
Oh, nonsense. This is nothing compared to the twig of 93. That's it. That's it. Good. You're doing great. There you go. There you go. Watch my eyes. Don't look away.
All right. Okay. So, what do you think about these this situation? Is it different from the things that happen by the end of any term in our organizations? Is it very different from the complaints that we receive from teachers when they have a difficult student, or when a term paper is approaching and they feel that their students are going to fail because they feel that all that they have taught has not reached those students? Please feel free to make comments here. Okay. What could we say about this leader? All right, I think that if we can find interesting qualities in this person, is first of all is the timing. All right, the person this ant does not arrive 10 minutes late. Okay, I mean the timing is perfect. Is in the moment that the problem arises. All right, the leader is there. The leader remains calm. Okay, this is crucial. All right, there is initiative, absolutely, and there is a rapport, an immediate rapport building. All right, there is a creation of trust in the very first moment, so that the others are going to believe in what he says, and they're going to follow him or her in this new version, okay? In this new path that had not been tried before, okay? So, archetypically, we may say that we have a clear representation of what people expect from a leader, okay? As regards the other film, I'm not going to show you the clip, but it's a typical one from the Marines, and it has to do with the personal values of a leader, okay? Not in relationship with others, but in terms of being able to be strong in his convictions, all right, in order to continue. So I'm not saying that we believe in this, but these are the archetypes of leadership that the people with whom we work value, all right? Or at least they live in societies, at least in the Western societies, they work in societies where these are the values associated with leaderships, okay? Now, as you mentioned a little bit before about Goleman, all right? What happens with leadership in terms of gurus nowadays? All right, management is full of gurus. All right, that is, there are tendencies, and there are many people writing on management, as we said at the very beginning, and some of them tend to have followers. All right, so the term most of the times is nowadays is in terms of gurus. All right, we have lots of people like Sharma. Peter, the other Peter, not Drucker, who's dead, but Tom Peters, okay, and lately, okay, Daniel Goleman, who specializes in emotional intelligence, all right, has been a very strong influencer, and also Simon Sinek, all right, who started after a TED talk and has grown in his influence in the past 3 years. All right, but if we take a look at what they say, so as to compare whether there has been any change in what is latent in societies as regards management, all right, the idea of if the archetypes are changed by what these people say, we can say that Goleman refers to gifted leadership as a combination of feelings and thought. Of course, that's his field. The idea of the balance between emotions and actions, all right? So we don't have a difference here, all right? There is an addition, the depth of the intrapersonal ability, okay? And of course, Sinek, okay? I don't know if, correct me if I'm pronouncing him incorrectly. All right, in terms of power of influence, well, if we take a look at that is the 1982 definition that I gave you, all right? So 30 years later, okay, again, we are making a point on the same thing, all right? And this is important, and Manoj, as you say that he's amazing, probably what is amazing is his style, all right? And this is what I aim at, in a way that is, it's quite difficult to find very new or brand new ideas, mostly in the educational field. Now, the way in which you approach them, the way in which you express them, you communicate them, may be the great achievement or the great advance. But there is not much new under the sun. And this is not bad. I would say that it's important in the educational field, because the educational field is a slow field. It's a field that cannot change abruptly, right? Because there are too many, in many countries, it's part of the bureaucracy of the countries, all right? I mean, the educational field at large, okay? Formal education for children, all right? Universities cannot change from day to night. They need a lot of time to analyze, to implement, etc. So then, in a way, it is rewarding for us to know that the main tenets of leadership are not changing. What is changing is the way in which you reach people in terms of management, of leadership, or other touches, okay, but not the core. Now, if we continue with this, all right, and we have seen the archetypes, the trendy style, and what happens with the originals, what happens with the basics, with the classics, all right? And then we have Peter Drucker. And I'm not going to quote White and Hockley here just because of certain reasons, all right? Because we all work with their manuals, all right? That those are the theory that we have at hand, okay? So the point is that Peter Drucker, in the latest last stage of his life, he was very concerned in making the point that people were at the core of business, all right? That he was interested in people and not so much in results, all right? Or not so much in the way the business worked, because to achieve changes, all right, you could not, if you are supposed to improve your results, you cannot act upon results. You have to act upon the actors that produce those results, and those are people, all right? So people lie at the core of organizations. And then another very, very important quote that we have from Peter Drucker is the concept that skills can be taught, but values cannot. And this was the origin of this talk. This is why I decided to start thinking about this, all right? Because when you start checking the literature and all the resources available, they are all on skills, but nothing on values. And of course, nothing on values because you cannot create those values. But when you recruit people, you need to take those things into account. And in education, values are crucial. If you do not agree with the values of an organization, and I mean the educational values of an organization, you are not hired. It is crucial in organizations to have people and managers who are going to express, portray, and communicate the values of the organization, all right? So then, this is the first connection between leadership at large and the educational field in particular, and the ELT management field more in detail, okay? So I was also reminded in this term of an Argentine colleague of mine who is very experienced and who was giving a talk in the first convention here in Argentina, and he was talking about human resource management, and he was telling the DOSs that the way to treat their personnel was to respect them. And it might be funny to say, what? But well, this is part of our culture. Most English language teachers in Argentina and in many parts of Latin America do not are not staff of the organization. They are hired as freelancers. They have no labor right, etc. So, as a manager or as a management trainer, to tell managers that they should trust, they should value their teachers, that they should tell them how much they are going to get paid and how, and all the extras that the organization is going to tell them, is a trait of a good manager, right? And that is the case of good practices. But these good practices go to the values of the manager, not the skills, because you may improve the communication skills of a manager, but not sincerity. All right, sincerity comes from the individual, and this is one of the challenges that we are always going to have in the profession if organizations are not sound and if they don't value their resources well. Okay, so another very interesting thing that came up in my research for this talk today was that in general, when you differentiate skills from qualities, you tend to associate it with the different levels of management. All right, the idea of top management being the visionary one, the one with the most important values, and the lower levels of management as people who basically are technically skilled. There is this study from June 2014 that basically surveyed this particular concept, the idea of skills across management levels. And what they found was that the top 5 or 6 skills are intrinsically, first, they are present in all levels, and they are intrinsically linked to values. Okay, if you take a look at inspiring and motivating others, all right, when you inspire others, it's because other people can see something in you that is yourself, and that is exactly what Simon Sinek says when he talks about people buy why you do things and not what you do. Okay, so we go to the quality. All right, displaying high integrity and honesty. This was again my hidden agenda for today. That is, if we are going to talk about qualities or leadership qualities in education, we cannot go without considering integrity. Integrity is a key educational value, and you cannot have educational leaders who do not express their integrity, okay, and honesty. Then problem solving can be taught, absolutely, all right. Driving from results, again, they are 2 skills, but the 2 that are at the top are basically personal, all right. They are basically value based. Then the next 2 are more skill oriented, and then we have the next 3 that are a combination of values and skills. All right, and I think that this is very important because many times in the organizations where we work, at least the ones that are large, that are mostly schools or universities, ELT is part of the middle management. It's not part of the top management, and then this opens the door for discussions that we may have. That is the typical tension and friction that appears between ELT managers and top managers in larger organizations, because we may have ELT managers who are that show integrity and honesty, that are inspiring and motivational, but depend from top management who is not particularly so, all right, who may be more or be stronger in problem solving or in driving for results. So this is an interesting field for us to explore. If you want, we can, I don't know, create a team and do a little bit of research in our different countries or in different organizations. Okay, but I think that this is a door that we can explore from our ELT field. Okay, and that is also associated with what Andy mentioned in terms of what we are going to do at the PCE, that is teacher development bottom up, because bottom up professional development will probably encounter a moment of friction or a moment of frustration if top management does not understand it. Okay, so summing up a bit the concept so far as regards what we've been talking in terms of leadership, all right, is that people are more important than tasks, that people buy why you do things, not what you do, and that actions and values must meet. So to meet, you need to have values, all right? You can acquire skills, but you cannot acquire values. And a couple of other questions that I would like to open for further discussion, maybe in some years, is the fact that whenever we talk about leadership for teachers, we talk about leadership in the classroom. We talk about leadership with their own students, all right, but not leadership in terms of horizontal development. We always associate teachers developing into managers as the only possibility of development, and maybe we may have great leaders who are leaders in different areas that are not management itself, and that is something that managers need to consider, not teachers. All right, opening paths for development is a challenge and is a duty from the managers, not necessarily for the teachers alone. And the other point to consider is gender. Okay, it's how much is being developed in terms of women as managers and women as leaders. All right. If we go back to the archetypical portrayal of leadership, we can check all of Pixar and Disney movies, and we will see that women basically are leaders of their own lives, but they are hardly ever followed. All right, the impact that they have is on their own realities, but not on general realities. I think that this is an interesting road to start traveling, mostly because the vast majority, at least in Latin America, of teachers are women. Okay, so leadership covered so far. Okay, and let us take a look at the other point, at the other side of the talk today, which is the idea of academic management. And I am quoting Hockley directly, all right, and White, of course, which is the idea of the definition of academic management in terms of the tension it always carries, all right, and that is the idea of academic management covers two tensions: towards teachers and students, and towards organizational systems and processes. In terms of of organizational systems and processes, I am not going to focus on that today because that implies clashes between administrative and teaching cultures, and we could talk about that some other day. But since I told you that what I was going to talk about was from the point of view of developing teachers and what we can do for teachers as future managers and or as teachers who have to live and to work in terms of Sarah Mercer, the best possible way their professions. I want to consider the idea of academic management towards teachers. All right, so for that, I want to basically consider a point in a case, all right, a case study of leadership in academic management. That is how we would see the leadership in a situation, for example, of curriculum change. All right, I mean, the educational field is not one that changes constantly, but the biggest schisms are whenever you have to change curriculum. And of course, any curriculum change is going to follow the managerial typical processes, okay? The processes of change management, that is the need for change, all right? And that implies an analysis of the situation, all right? Together with it's the idea, then an analysis of the situation and of the impact, then an implementation of the situation where you will find cases of approval and denial depending on how the analysis was performed and depending on the reality that you have. Then the idea of finding the deviations from the intended results, adjustments, and a second cycle of implementation, all right, and changes. So basically, and this is simpler in this other chart, okay, if we develop this concept, we could say that in the managerial stages for a case of curriculum change, we would have analysis, implementation, evaluation, adjustments, and implementation, right? But what skills from leadership are necessary? In the analysis, what is necessary from the leader is to be flexible and creative, and those are mainly intrapersonal skills, all right? So those are related to values, okay? That is the self-perception of the leader are going to allow him or her to be flexible, all right? Otherwise, the person will think that all that he or she stands for are going to fall into parts, and then change dies at the very beginning. Okay. Then the case of implementation, all right, is what we saw in the short clip, all right, the possibility of communication and commitment. If the aunt had arrived 5 minutes or 10 minutes late because he was drinking coffee, the case of commitment was, the expression of commitment would have been different. The feedback that he gave the person that it was instantaneous, right, wouldn't have happened, and his ability of and of course it was necessary to have this ability of communication that he so clearly expressed. Then, if the change takes place, and implementation is crucial because by the knowledge of what an organization is and the different cultures and styles and a clear analysis of the organization, is that you will never have everybody to follow you. But what you need is to minimize the objections to the implementation, and that you need to know that you will need to intervene in the short term so as to avoid the objections becoming wider and becoming stronger, and that if you let time pass, you will have a bigger problem to solve. So that is why the process of change management is so important when you are thinking at any educational change from a leadership perspective. Okay. Then another thing that many times is not so clear in the teaching environment is when you evaluate the situation from a managerial point of view, the idea of being committed and not being in so many other things that you don't have time to evaluate things well. And the other thing is being positive. Evaluating means finding what you achieved and what you did not achieve, not only the bad things. And evaluation is the moment when you can draw your newest intervention, your next intervention. So it's an incredibly rich and valuable moment. Okay, and that is why, and really positivity. I don't know. I mean, you can go to your therapist to be more positive, but I don't think that you're going to get any leadership trainer to change that value or that internal capacity into a skill. Okay, and then adjustments, all right, need for creativity, feedback, and communication, because you have to convince the people that what didn't work well or the reactions or the objections that they had were not so much. So you need to be empathic with the person. You cannot be like I am sorry, I would just the word went off. Okay, but they cannot feel that you are scolding them. Okay, when you are making the adjustments, you have to make them feel that you are accompanying them in their road. Okay, because of course, whenever we talk about changes, we also need to consider that we are going to deal with the human resources that we have. We are not going to fire everybody and start from anew. We need to give everybody a chance, because that is the educational value that lies at the bottom of everything that we do. Okay? And then, of course, implementation, the second stage of implementation, will also call for flexibility and responsibility. So, trying not to take so much of your time, all right, to round off and to leave time for questions and for discussion, I would like to round off saying that in education, all right, educational leaders represent a clear example of humanity over technicalities in challenging situations, that we deal with humans and that we deal with education, and that it cannot educate technically, all right, because otherwise, at least Latin America would have failed Paulo Freire's work. And we have that, at least in our personal area, we have that legacy to follow and to enhance, all right? The human is the foremost object of education, and it is a subject. And we should not forget that when we think in terms of management. Teachers are the subject, okay? And that was very well portrayed in Ron and Andy's inverted pyramid diagram in their book, okay? And the other thing is that it is important to understand the gist of what is happening and not to get lost in technicalities, because that is the only way that you're going to avoid losing ground as a leader. If you clearly understand what is happening and you don't focus on the tip of the iceberg, but you know what the tip represents, then you are going to be able to be a good leader. So again, I'm being somewhat repetitive. It's all about values over skills. All right. So this is all I have to share with you today. I would love to hear comments from you and the questions, all right, or exchanges. Okay. And thanks for being so kind and to having been with us for this time. Okay. So. If it's not a question, right, it's a thought, whatever. Suggestions, proposals for research. Okay, we're waiting. Right. So I'm thinking of the process of recruiting managers in ELT and this question of values above skills. Then interviews should focus more on the values these managers bring with them rather than only focusing on how skillful they are for the job. Yeah, I would say that we should include, sometimes the idea of values is overlooked. And I wouldn't say that it's only values, because it also depends on the time and the money that you have to spend on training those people. But if you start including the idea, right? Yeah, absolutely. The idea of including values and not general values. I'm not talking about being traditional, etc. But it's knowing the values that your organization focuses on, and or at least general educational values. All right, that is seeing. I mean, one of the problems that that educational organizations find is that, for example, let me tell you a case that is happening now at the university I work. They have hired a whole human resources team that do not come from university, all right, that do not come from the educational field. And we are a university, so you have some of the one of the schools of the university is administration. So suddenly you have rather recent graduates from human resources trying to tell academics on human resources how they should do their management using terms poorly translated into Spanish. Okay, so for example, as at the beginning, one of you mentioned in terms of teachers taking offense about being told what to do. Well, if you are, for example, going to hire certain human resources leaders that are going to deal with high-profile teachers, you need to get those people to know the values that a high-profile academic has. Right? You cannot treat an academic as an administrative employee, no matter how valuable the administrative employee is. It's just that there is too much at stake every time the academic walks into a classroom or does anything, because his or her name is into play. All right. So, for example, I study, and this is itself publicity, but this is my paper for IATEFL this year. That is what happens when you develop an ELT department in a university that never thought that the language department could grow. Okay, so what is the potential and what is the reality? Thanks, Anastasia. Marina, thanks so much. Thank you. When I was at DOS, I'd usually see teachers as my main clients, so to say. But that sometimes led to clashes with the management of the school. How do you think DOS should have the balance between the requirements of business management and teachers' needs and wants? Well, I think that this is the challenge. That's why I opened this. I think that this is an area for us to do research and to produce theory on, because this is one of the strongest cases where DOSs feel frustrated, they burn out, and many times they try a career change. Mm. I think that that is why we should not forget that the original history of management was born and was shaped by language schools. So then most of the things that we have in terms of ELT management is related to language schools. And then the language, the DOS is top management. But when you find the ELT manager being part of middle management in a large organization, there is a tendency to clash and to burnout. So I think it's a great challenge. All right, as we said, I think that we could consider this talk as a point of evaluation in change management as regards the growth and the professionalization of ELT managers. Thanks. And let's see what Mr. Hockley has to say. Anybody else? Okay, you see, so here we have something to read on, and well, what do you think, Andy? We could start some project with people who want to expand probably your research to check it in other
Yes, thanks
in
very
other
much,
places.
Marina. Thank you, Veronica, for
No, that would be.
for that. No, this was really interesting. It was great. I hope that everybody who made it enjoyed it. And if there are any other questions, we have a couple of minutes if anyone wants to, and then I'll let Marina get off because obviously being in Argentina, it's early in the morning for her. For me, it's getting towards the end of Friday afternoon, but for some of you, for Marina and I know others in the room, this is probably the beginning of Friday, the beginning of the day. So you may have places to go.
Absolutely.
Not that early anymore. No. So thanks to everybody for coming. Everyone seems to be thanking you. Just another quick reminder of the International House Barcelona conference, which is in the 9th and 10th of February in Barcelona, where we'll be a partner. I'll be presenting, so will Josh Round, so will Anya Kolbasevska, and we're waiting on a couple more names. But there's also some other people there, like Scott Thornbury and Gavin Dudney, and a lot of well-known people presenting at that conference. And then again, the pre-conference event in Brighton in April, which I think will be a great event. And of course, the IATEFL conference itself, where there'll be some really interesting LAMSIG presentations. I've actually seen the list of presentations which will be on the LAMSIG banner this time round, which I can't talk about yet because it's not been announced, but they look fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to that conference in April. And keep an eye on the website and Twitter and Facebook because we have other events lined up which will be announced very soon because they're still in the pipeline, but they're pretty much ready to go. So thanks very much, Marina. Thanks everyone for coming, and have a good Friday and a good weekend.